Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate Day 441. Friday, May the 24th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Fun Friday. And hey, hello to my good friend over there in Vietnam. Good morning, Vietnam. Alrighty. Patrick in Vietnam. Alrighty. Well, the big news of Thursday, of course, was that Thursday morning, I guess around 10 o'clock my time, we hear that North Korea destroyed their only known underground nuclear test facility, which of course you can see on Google Earth or something. I saw a video of it, I think it was Google Earth or something. There was some media there to verify that they did blow up the site. And then a couple hours later, Trump comes out and cancels this meeting that they were going to have June 12th. So what is going on here? Well, again, this is just, standard fare for North Korea. And China is usually behind it. So if I had to take a wild guess, I would say that this is China playing Trump or testing Trump to see if they can squeeze just one last thing or a couple things out of him with issues that they're dealing with to get him to try to... try to come their way on a couple issues. Let me get straight here. Yeah. So trying to get Trump to come their way a little bit on some issues. So they probably threw this into the spokes. My guess is they did it to see if they could get Trump and his team to capitulate and to, try to salvage the deal by giving China something they want. That's all back channel stuff that we'll never know about that's going on. It obviously did not work. Now, that would have worked on Bill Clinton. It would have worked on Obama. It would have worked on that idiot George Bush. But it will not work on Trump. He's too smart for that. He understands exactly when he's being played. And so what he did was he came out and said, okay, well, I guess it's unfortunate, but the meeting's off, and hopefully we'll be able to set the meeting up again, and it'll all get back on track. But if not, we'll go ahead and send the military naval group back in there, and we'll keep an eye on things. And, of course, hopefully it won't come to nuclear destruction. Pretty much. So Trump's playing it perfectly. And it was funny because right after he came out and said that, a lot of the left wing, of course, were celebrating, thinking, okay, great, Trump's not going to get his Nobel Peace Prize and, that sort of thing. But it only took 3 or 4 hours. I think by dinner time, by 6 o'clock, I was starting to hear that both China and North Korea had now responded and saying, hey, we're still open to the talks, and that date could, we can still get that done. We can talk this over. So sure enough, Trump called their bluff. I think that China was behind it and had something to do with the trade on the steel tariffs that China's not real happy about. But it had something to do, I think, with the tariffs and the trade negotiations, the trade stuff going on between the United States and China, and probably had little to do with anything going on in North Korea. Anyway, that's just my take on it. That's my guess, because that's what it usually has been in the past. And I've been through this now probably 15 times. It's not a new tactic. It's an old tactic. It's just Trump's new, and I guess they wanted to try it on him. And, of course, he did the exact opposite of what Bush, Kerry, and Clinton, and Obama, and all their people did. Trump didn't blink. He just basically said, okay, well, I guess the talks are off then, and hopefully we won't have to nuke you. And in the past, what would happen is we would cave. We would say, okay, because none of those presidents wanted to take the political hit for having this big build-up to a meeting and then having it canceled. It makes you kind of look bad, just like it kind of made Trump look bad. It would have made Trump look bad if, in fact, North Korea would have canceled the meeting, or if he had waited a couple days, maybe China would have tried that move. Trump didn't wait. At the first sign that he saw that a game was being run on him, he called their bluff and killed it. He didn't even let it go 2 or 3 days to what would eventually happen is China would come out. Well, they would tell North Korea to come out and say, well, there's a problem, we have to cancel the meeting or postpone or whatever. He did not allow it to even play. He shut it down immediately. And that's exactly what happened. But in the past, we would have paid him off. we would have said, what's it going to take to make the meeting happen? How much? And that's exactly what Kim Jong-un's dad and his granddad would do to us all the time. He would work up to like, yeah, we're going to have this great friendship. We're going to meet. We're going to get together. Everything's going to be groovy. And then all of a sudden, you get a couple days out, and you would find out that they had some other questions and some other things. Things were changing at the last minute. And of course, that's when Clinton or Bush or whoever would come and say, okay, Ball, we can't cancel this meeting. What's it going to take? How many tons of grain do you want? How many tons of rice do you want? How many skids of $100 shrink wrapped $100 bills do you need? What's it going to take? And that's typically what's always been done. It's not going to work anymore because now we have a real president with a real pair of big brass balls. Okay. Well, the Judiciary and Oversight Government Reform Committees will be interviewing Bill Priestap, Michael Steinbach, and John Giacalone. And these are the committees which are run by Bob Goodlatte and Trey Gowdy. Now, what the hell's going on here? Okay, if you remember back around the end of December, Nunez and Gowdy and some of these other guys, Goodlatte, were pressing really hard to be able to interview, and Grassley were pressing really hard to be able to interview all these guys who are mostly in the small group. Page and Strzok and Priestap and all these people wanted to interview them, and they were having a lot of problems. Finally, they had this meeting, if you remember, on January the 4th, and it involved Rodenstein and the DNI and Nunez and people like that. So they all sat around and there was some kind of a deal cut. We still don't know what that deal was, but we know that after that meeting that they were given clearance to interview all these people. Grassley, Nunez, Goodlatte, they could have interviewed all those people they had been wanting to interview for so long. They finally got the clearance to do so, but then they didn't. They stopped scheduling interviews altogether. They have not been interviewing any of those people since then, January 4th. Now, as we see the IG report is getting ready to come out, and we see that Page and Baker have been cut loose, they're still holding on to Strzok and Orr. So it appears that what is going on is that whatever they needed from these guys, Priestap, Steinbach, and Giacalone, whatever they needed from them, and these are three of the top FBI officials: Priestap, counterintelligence; Michael Steinbach, counterintelligence; and Giacalone was a special agent, FBI agent, who was the top guy who was in charge of the Clinton email investigation before it was pulled from him by Comey and given to the small group. So basically, these guys probably have I would have to think at this point what this tells us is that Huber is done with them. Huber has gotten everything he needs from them. The IG has gotten everything he needs from them, and so now they've been cleared. And there's probably some things that they will not talk about or will not even be asked about, because it's very likely that maybe Huber has got a criminal cases that he's working on, and he doesn't want his case compromised, and that's probably why he didn't want these people talking, and that's probably the deal that was cut. It was probably, hey, let Mr. Huber get all his interviews done, get his interrogations done, get everything he needs from these guys, and then you can interview him. But if you interview him now, leaks come out, all sorts of things happen. Things could come out that could tip off where the investigation's going. Can you sit on it? So my guess is what has happened is they were told to sit on it while Mr. Huber conducted his interrogations, investigations, or what have you. But apparently they're clear now too. So that tells us that whatever they knew is probably, everything that they knew is probably now on the record, and that's probably going to be, we'll find it later down the road showing up in some sort of criminal indictments or prosecutions or something based on what they know. Now, this third guy is very interesting. And by the way, this is the order that they'll be interviewed in. Bill Priestap will be interviewed first, sometime about the first week of June, which will be next week. And then next will be Michael Steinbach. And and then will be this Joe Giacalone. Now, this Joe Giacalone could be the most interesting interview of all, because he was the FBI agent who was actually running the Clinton email investigation when it first broke. It fell into his jurisdiction, so he started working the investigation, but within a couple of days, or maybe a week or two, Comey comes along, he creates this small group, and they pull the investigation away from Giacalone and his people, which really ticked him off. And apparently he raised some hell about it and tried to find out what was going on, and then when he got shut out and he saw that there was some kind of a scam going on, he quit. He quit the FBI under protest. So he is going to be the third guy. We also know that there were two other agents with Strzok when they interviewed Michael Flynn, and apparently one of them has agreed to testify as well. So it's just, again, the witnesses will be coming out of the woodwork. We know there's many, many more, probably some other people, even in the 7th floor, who are going to eventually turn, because you either got to fish or cut bait. I mean, you're either on one side or the other. At some point, when the indictments start coming down, and they will, you are going to have to jump on one side of the fence or the other. You can't. These people are riding the fence right now because they don't know where everything's going. They don't know if they're in criminal liability yet or not. They don't know whether they're going to be a witness or what they're going to be. But people are kind of just watching right now. But believe me, we're going to get to the point. There's going to be something that's going to happen one day. This whole thing is going to be blown wide open. It could be some crazy source that comes out of nowhere and drops the dime on a whole bunch of people, or it could be just this typical drip, drip, drip. Eventually builds up to a point. We can see it's increasing rapidly now in how things are coming. It's not just a little bit of information here and there. We're getting chunks of information now, 2 and 3 chunks a day of valuable information, and so it is accelerating rapidly. It's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. And you will see these people coming out of the woodwork. Because at some point, you gotta dance. You gotta dance. Just ask Alice Cooper. Harvey Weinstein, close personal friend of the Rotten Reverend Clinton, huge donor for the Rotten Reverend Clinton, is turning himself into the FBI today, Friday. See, that's why it's a fun Friday. It's a great Friday. Can you think of anything better on Friday than knowing that this effing weasel, Weinstein, friend of the Rotten Reverend Clinton, the Obamas and the whole liberal gang, the whole Hollywood crap show, the direct pipeline of filth into America that flows out of that hellhole known as Hollywood. Mr. Weinstein is turning himself in tomorrow because they were going to come and arrest him. They have 2 solid witnesses, and I don't know if they use one or both of these to make the charges. We'll find out tomorrow when they actually, or probably not tomorrow. He'll turn himself in tomorrow, probably after the holiday weekend, I guess Tuesday. They'll come out and read the charges and the indictment on Harvey Weinstein. So he's going to be taken out of the game, and that's going to hurt Democrats because, I mean, Weinstein raised a hell of a lot of money. I mean, this guy raised big money. Big money. So there's another Democrat donor who will not be raising a whole lot of money other than for his own legal defense. He's got a lot of problems. His company has filed bankruptcy, and his wife is playing stupid. I don't think she is stupid. I think she knows exactly what she was married to. How disturbing. But anyway, this came out today. So Friday, Weinstein will be turning himself into the NYPD to answer to the charges, and that's a sick son of a gun right there who needs to go directly into a mental institution or something. First prison, then mental institution. This guy should never, ever be out on the streets again. He is absolutely a sick pup. At the same time, we hear now that Morgan Freeman has 8 accusers of sexual misconduct against him. I've always liked Morgan Freeman as an actor, despite the fact that, another thing, he was the voice. He was the voice in all of the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign commercials by the official Hillary Clinton campaign. He was the person that did all of her narration voice for all of her Hillary for President 2016 campaign commercials. Morgan Freeman. Now he has 8 accusers of sexual misconduct. What is it? Everyone around the Rotten Reverend is some kind of freak or pervert or pedophile or rapist or misogynist or I mean, what in the world is up with that Klan? Have you ever known, any of you, look around you, you know, you can think back through the course of your life, and you can think back, you can go all the way back to high school and think, well, my whole lifetime, I've maybe known one person who was found charged or found to be guilty, or turned out to be some kind of a sick freak, psycho, sex maniac. Maybe one, and he's not even close to me. He's just someone I knew, I went to high school with. His name popped up in the newspaper one day for being involved in some of this type of stuff. Was never really a friend, just I knew him in high school. But the Rotten Reverend Clinton, and I'm sure you guys are the same way. You may know one person, if any, who would fall into that category of this kind of crazy, sick pedophilia, sexual deviance, sexual miscreants. Here in the case of the Rotten Reverend Clinton, she's married to one. Her closest assistant, her little carpet-munching buddy, Huma, was married to one who's currently in jail. One of her biggest donors to her campaign, Mr. Weinstein, was one. Their other buddy, Mr. What's his name again? Epstein, yes. Jeffrey Epstein. We know all about him and the Clintons' trips to his little island. And all these people, Morgan Freeman, it's just look at how many of these sexual spastics who've been taken down in the past 6 months or so. Look how many of them have such a close relationship to the Rotten Reverend Clinton. She gravitates, she attracts these kind of psychotic, sexually disturbed individuals into her life. And it can only mean birds of a feather flock together. It can only mean that the Rotten Reverend Clinton herself is probably a sexual deviant. And by the way, who was the informant who helped the FBI to bring down Weinstein? None other than Epstein. Epstein took down Weinstein. Steen and Steen. Or is it Stein and Stein? Or Stein and Steen? Or Steen and Stein? I don't know. But either way, they used Epstein. So I wonder what the FBI had on him that they were able to get him to turn on his buddy Weinstein, because apparently it was Weinstein that turned the Clintons on to Epstein. My goodness, what a freak show. What a freak show. Alrighty, let's move on. Adam Schiff, the bug-eyed fool, couldn't resist, gets on Twitter right after that meeting on Thursday, and literally tweets out that there's no evidence that there was a spy in the Trump campaign. No evidence that there was a spy in the Trump campaign. None at all. The fact that that Clapper and Comey and Brennan have all come out now and admitted it. Admitted there was a spy. Not only did they say, yeah, there was a spy, but it was good for Trump. We did it for him. We had the spy in there to try to, get to the Russians. So apparently someone needs to inform Adam the bug-eyed fool Schiff that it's already been admitted to that there was a spy in the Trump campaign. The only question is now, what role did they play? What was their modus operandi? That is the only question. Adam Schiff, you're a mess. Well, just like I told Roger Stone about 2 weeks ago, I said, Roger Stone, heads up, brother, you're next. So now Roger Stone is now being investigated by Uncle Bob the executioner and the Hillary Clinton posse. And they're investigating his finances and tax returns. What in the world has that got to do with Trump, Russia, WikiLeaks, or anything else? You're really reaching here, Uncle Bob. And you're starting to piss me off. You're embarrassing yourself. In that court case, he went for another. This is not even in my notes. Something I read yesterday. They've now asked a second time for that judge in the case against the alleged Russian troll company after dumping 1.5 terabytes of Russian Facebook posts or Russian social media posts on them. They come back with another 1.5, bringing the total now to 3 terabytes of information that they now have brought forward, and they ask again for the judge to delay a speedy trial. Now, when you're arrested, part of your constitutional rights is you have the right to a speedy trial. That has been defined by the courts as 70 days. 70 days. So Uncle Bob wants more than 70 days just to try to get his case together, because now it appears that because he has submitted all of this stuff and he submitted it to lawyers who work for Russians, they'll probably send this stuff back to Russia, where they have plenty of people who can translate it, tell you exactly what it is. Uncle Bob doesn't apparently have a Russian translator, so he's got a lot of problems. He's got to get a couple, and a lot of them probably. How much is that going to cost? So Uncle Bob has asked the judge to waive something they hardly ever waive, which is a speedy trial. I would be shocked only if it's an Obama appointee judge will they do that. Because when a prosecutor goes in and indicts perps, it is assumed at that point that you have your case ready to go to trial. You do not go and indict when in fact your case isn't even ready to go to trial. You haven't even prepared your case. That is playing serious games with the legal system, with the judicial system, and most judges will not find any humor in that at all. I would not be surprised to see if this is an actual real judge and not a political activist in a black robe appointed by Obama. If this is an actual real judge and not a political activist appointed by Obama, that judge is going to rip Uncle Bob a third asshole. He's already got two. So I predict that that's what's going to happen there. Unbelievable. It's being reported that Trey Gowdy and Devin Nunez did not get what they wanted in those documents or redactions. That's what's being reported, that they did not get it. They made no statement. They left. They said nothing. Other than Nunez asked one of the reporters, "Don't you guys have something better to do?" That's all he said. So they're apparently not very happy, and it doesn't look like they got what they want. Now, I thought that the president's chief of staff was in that meeting. Maybe he went in and got it started and left or something. I don't know. But there was essentially two meetings that Nunez was in yesterday, and it appears that they did not get what they wanted. Now, maybe they asked questions and were given answers, but they did not get documents. They did not see unredacted documents. This is what's being reported now. And this leads me to the next conclusion that I'm starting to wonder, is Rodenstein trying to pull the same thing Comey pulled and trying to get fired? Is Rodenstein trying to get fired? Because the president just had him and Sessions in his office the other day, or him and Ray. I think it was him and Ray. No, for sure it was Rodenstein. Basically to tell them, hey, it's time for you to produce these documents. Congress does oversight, produce the documents. So what does he do? He shows up today, and we have reason to believe John Kelly was there at least for some point. And Rodenstein doesn't turn over the documents, doesn't give them the redacted documents, doesn't give them what they want. I mean, personally, I would fire Rodenstein. I would pick up the phone tomorrow morning and say, Rod, you were supposed to, do your job. You're obstructing now a congressional investigation. You're impeding a congressional investigation, which is lawful. Congress has the right. I asked you in my office a week ago. I told you in my office a week ago, it's time to start doing your job, producing the documents, and let the chips fall where they may, Rod. And now you've defied that. Rod, Rodenstein, you're fired. And let the chips fall where they may. He has every reason to fire Rodenstein. I mean, if you're trying to get fired and you're Rodenstein, this is exactly what you would do. Defy the president. Unbelievable. It appears now that the fat man, Stefan Halpert, and Alexander Down the Hatch Downer go way back. I knew that. Back at least to 2010. I'm sure they go back much farther than that. But we know that both have ties to MI6 and the CIA. And we also know that both of them gave a speech. They were together on a list of at an event where there were 4 speakers. They were 2 of the 4 speakers. That event was October the 18th, 2010. It was at the William Pitt seminar at Emmanuel College. Downer and Halpert on the same ticket back in 2010, October 18th, giving a speech together. We need to find Halpert. we need to find Stefan Halpert before someone else does. I think he should come forward and try to get some protection or something. I don't really know. Maybe he's being protected by MI6 right now. Maybe the British have had to reel him back in and put him in a safe house, and he's probably being protected by British intelligence right now, would be my guess. Man, I'll tell you what. We need to get Halpert. He needs to be in front of a grand jury, and they need to find out, did he ever speak with, directly or indirectly through an intermediary, Mr. Misfid, who we believe has ties to Russian intelligence, Mr. Milian, Mr. Timoviv, or Mr. Epstein. These are the four guys primarily as source A, B, C, and D, or actually A, B, D, and E, because there was no C if I remember correctly. These are four of the five sources. And the fifth source was someone described as the talkative one, a female, which we believe worked at that Ritz-Carlton in Moscow. But no one knows how to contact her or anything like that, nor is she really credited for too much. But it's primarily Misfid, Milian, Timoviv, and Epstein. They are the four guys. We need to find out if Mr. Halpert or Mr. Downer had any communication, indirectly, directly, or indirectly, with Misfid, Milian, Timoviv, or Epstein, because something tells me that Mr. Halpert was manipulating these individuals as well, or they were working with him. Misfid probably attached to British intelligence, probably working with Downer and the Fat Man. Milian probably used as an asset. Timoviv probably the same, and Epstein probably just pretty much the same. Those three guys probably were just stepping stones to get to what the target. That's what it looks like to me. We need to find Stefan Halpert before someone else does. The unwitting idiot, James Crapper, says the Russians not only affected the outcome of the election, they decided it. He said this on PBS. He also says that Trump's questioning of the deep state is dangerous. Well, it's dangerous for the deep state. And you, Mr. Clapper, you unwitting idiot. Now, here is clearly, I forget how many times now he has lied, but he sat there right there in Congress and said that, and of course we have plenty of things that have come out that stated they had no effect on the election whatsoever. So now he's completely contradicting himself, what he said under oath in front of Congress. But apparently he's got a book coming out too, and this is in his memoirs. Maybe he'll go on a book tour like Comey. I mean, these guys are pathological liars. I mean, they are sociopaths, and they are pathological liars. They can't help themselves. They just lie constantly. I mean, they're on video saying the complete exact opposite of the things that they've been out saying now. When they're in Congress under oath, they say one thing. They write a book, they say another. They do an interview here, they say this. They go on CNN, they say that. The next day they say something else. I mean, these guys are all over the damn place. Well, the lefties are on the wrong side again. Boy, did they ever get it right? My God. Well, they cast their pearls with Saggy Daniels and her scum-sucking lawyer, Mr. Avenatti. All their hopes and dreams on Saggy and Avenatti. Now it appears that Saggy is using a Trump figure, like a Trump statue, in her strip act, which apparently is not going over very well. And her scum-sucking lawyer, Avenatti, has just lost a lawsuit filed against the law firm that he managed, and he has been ordered to pay $10 million in damages, as well as unpaid back taxes. In addition to that, we learned a few days ago, or about a week ago, it came out that Avenatti lost a sexual discrimination case filed by a former employee, and he must also pay her $130 grand. Mr. Avenatti has made 174 television appearances since he began representing Saggy. Well done, Democrats. Well done. Finally, Sharyl Attkisson did another article. She's had like 3 beauties in the last week. In this article, she points out 8 points of undeniable proof of the FBI's Spygate was political. 8 points of undeniable proof that FBI's Spygate was political. Here are them. Here are them. Here they are. Here they are. It's Friday. Anyway. Number 1, the plethora of wiretaps. They had wiretapped Brennan, Cohen, Flynn, Kushner, Manafort, Paps, and Page. And of course we know that they get to go 2 leaps out from each of those individuals, which means they got everybody. They got everybody. Number 2, the extraordinary use of national security letters, which we now know can be signed off on by the FBI. Oh, and by the way, I did finally go back and find that video of Larry Klayman. And I must have been like multitasking, which I do a lot of times. I'll like be watching a video, but I'll be sometimes looking through a book or flipping through something else, or have another web page open while I'm listening to a video. I'll be reading something on another page. And they were talking about wiretapping and surveillance and all that, and then they kind of morphed the conversation into drone strikes. So that's where the conversation went. So I just wasn't paying close attention. So what they were talking about is to who signs off on the, because apparently every day the president is given a list of targets for drone strikes, and the president signs off on it, and then the attorney general, I assume, signs off on it as well. But they're the only 2 where president must sign off on drone strikes. No one else can sign off on a drone strike but the president. He has to sign off on the drone strikes every day. So that's what they were talking about, not basic surveillance. So that is how I got that wrong, but now that I've corrected it, thanks to a commenter, we know that the FBI can issue national security letters, and they issued a bunch of them, which is totally rare, not supposed to be done. It's not what they're meant to be used for, but they were abused by the FBI. And you don't even hear a lot of people talking about that, but pointed out here by Sharyl Attkisson. The extraordinary use of national security letters. Number 3, the ubiquitous and insidious use of leaks. Weaponizing the media. Absolutely. Yeah, essentially, that's exactly what they did, and they continue to do it. And that's another sure sign there's a lot of problems and a lot of crimes. The unprecedented unmasking. We know that they unmask hundreds and hundreds of times, particularly in the last 2 months of the administration. They were unmasking constantly. The changed rule on disseminating presidential daily briefings 30 days out from the inauguration. Yeah, I mean, that's been talked about a lot. That's how they managed to flow all that information throughout everywhere, and we know that the dossier information was making it into the PDBs based on the Mr. Potato Head, John Brennan, who's probably soaking in a bubble bath looking at that tablet. And I'm very sorry to the ladies who tune in. I probably ruined your bubble bath experiences for life. I'm sorry. Media deflections by former Intel heads commenting on ongoing investigations. Yeah, you got former, Intel people, Clapper and Comey and Brennan out there. Now they're essentially part of these media organizations that they were leaking to before illegally, out there talking about ongoing investigations and everything else. I mean, these guys are just off the charts. This has never been seen before. She's right about that point as well. She talks about the fact that there were friends, informants, and snoops, and I would add to that agent provocateurs buried into the campaign, at least 1, and as many as 7 now identified by the Gateway Pundit. And then, of course, using foreign intel services and foreign actors in a political campaign by the intelligence agencies, contractors in coordination with government assets, foreign government assets. Yes, these are all part of it, and what they all add up to, when you look at it, quite honestly, you're using a sledgehammer to kill an ant. That's what it boils down to. Of course, we wouldn't be a fun Friday without finishing up with one last thing on Senator Magoo, whose memoirs will be coming out. And in the memoirs, apparently he says in his book, he says, Go to hell if you don't like the fact that I passed the dossier to the FBI. Yeah, well, we accept that you passed the dossier to the FBI, Senator Magoo. But what we learned and what we're learning now, you were a lot more involved in that and much earlier on.